only 4 teams in MLS have more wins than the New York City Football Club after their dramatic win, 3-2 triumph over Columbus at Yankee Stadium last night. And if the Pigeons are fortunate enough to defeat Charlotte on Saturday, they will clinch a playoff spot. Also, it looks like that we may be fortunate enough to see Lionel Messi at the new stadium, Etihad Park, in 2027. We'll get into that a little bit. And 400 broadcasts, a celebration, a video we're going to share with you a little bit later on as well on NYCFC Views Live.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene el tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer!
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And if you're sick of those calls, well, they're on the big video, which we're going to share a little bit later on. There's Roberto Abramowitz. I'm Glenn Crooks. And, well, we always say, we're not playing, we're not coaching. We are part of the club in terms of their broadcasts. We travel with them, so obviously we're closer with them than any other team in the league. But our moods are impacted by wins and losses, just like anyone else. And this was the kind of game last night, Roberto, where, you really, it was, I know we spoke on the drive home, and you could tell we were both still pretty elated with what happened.
Yeah, I mean, the minute that game ended, I was telling Sean, who helps us out with stats and other stuff, that we need to get that goal up there as quickly as possible on social media because of the importance of it, the moment, what it signified, how it came about. And then when I reheard it, I just realized that I put together a whole bunch of Spanish words. I don't think we're grammatically correct. And it's one of those things, Glenn, where I really didn't care. It's one of those where you feel the moment. You just feel for the fan base. You feel connected. And it was just pure emotion, elation. And I know that we're a little bit detached as being announcers. We're not homers and all that. But, we work for the club. We have feelings for the club one way or the other. And it was just a absolute magnificent moment. And because it happened at home, because I think back to the Tinnerholm goal, which is might be one of the most important goals, if not the most important goal in New York City history, because of what that led to, right? And that wasn't at home. That was in Atlanta.
Don't you said Tinnerholm? You meant
Toronto. I'm sorry, I didn't mean Tinnerholm. You know who I meant. Toronto.
Another Nordic fellow who's been part of the program.
Yes.
Yeah, hey,
by the way, Tinnerholm had a magnificent goal in San Jose, but which New York City tried last night.
Yes, Aiden O'Neill didn't quite strike it the way you would like, but sometimes those are set up. He has that ability. He'll score on one of those once. I suspect he's had a couple of from outside that. He had another one that he sliced. Boy, that was only about less than a yard wide of the post. He may have had Schulte beat. So he's close. He's close to getting his first. We see players getting their first goals. Fernandez, Murkow, and Seymour Reed in the 3-1 win at Chicago. And then last night, Noche Latina. It had to be a Latin player that scored the game-winning goal. It had to be, right? So let's hear Roberto's call. The Latin should give the call to the Latin, and we'll leave mine to the side, because this was the moment that it was one of the great moments in 2025. Here you go.
Contragolpe neoyorquino con Seymour Reed en el centro. Quieren poner el balón, lo hace para Reed, pero llega el tiro y ¡gol! ¡Es Fernandez! Con el zurda al poste segundo y New York City abre la hora, se va a llevar la victoria.
Agónico no, lo que sigue este triunfo de New York City es enorme, no por el fútbol que mostró que fue bueno, sino por la forma en la que termina ganando. Imagino que termina, pero la forma en la que ahora mismo está obteniendo los 3 puntos, con mucho carácter, con mucha guapesa, sin sus jugadores ofensivos principales, que son Maxi y Alonso Martínez, se está llevando 3 puntos enormes, mucho valor, mucho coraje, muchas agallas de New York City esta noche aquí en Yankee Stadium.
With Ariel Hudas, there's Roberto Abramowitz.
You want to know something? You know how good that goal was? Ariel was excited.
But I tell you, that's the great part about our sport. And we're sports fans. We follow, cover, have broadcasted other sports in our careers, and you still do. But the sport of soccer, you know, it's there's that instantaneous moment. And I know it could be a 3-pointer in overtime in basketball that wins it at the buzzer. I get that. But in soccer, there's so few goals scored, if you want to compare, that it really it really provides the drama. And certainly 4th minute of stoppage time, and Sergei Boyko blew his whistle almost right after the kickoff. And there were a couple of things to note with that goal. Number one, which is the best part, I think, is Fernandez just motioning Seymour Reed to get away. I got this, brother. I've got this. I don't know if he was speaking Spanish. I don't know what he was saying to him for Seymour Reed to understand, but it was more the gestures. I think he probably figured, I can't really say what I want to say, so I better just use that the nonverbal to get him the hell out. Oh my gosh, that was funny.
It was great, and the shot is just fantastic. And when you see it from behind the post as a ball is coming in, you see the swerve on that ball. I mean, that was just magnificent. You can't hit a ball any better than that.
Then the other thing to note is, did you see the first person he leapt into the arms of? Raul Gustavo. He came down. He was just on the bench last night after making his first appearance in Chicago as a starter. Hurt himself, was available last night, but I know Pascal didn't want to use him. And the way it all worked out, he didn't have to. So now I think he'll be more fit for what might happen on Saturday if needed. But he went, and Maxi Morales, who had subbed out, and we got to get to Pascal and his substitution patterns last night. I mean, exceptional, and he's been that way for a good portion of the second half of the season, making a lot of the right decisions. But Maxi Morales was leaping on the backs of players, and there have been some big moments this year. But I mean, that really that was classic.
I'll tell you whose smile I liked the best in all of that and the celebration, and it was not only in the goal, but then again post game after the game was over. Micha Ilinic hasn't seen the field since League's Cup. 5 games in a row he hasn't seen the field. And here he is, being one of the most excited players about what's happening. You talk about team and a united locker room and what that means. That to me means volumes. And, kudos to everybody, for having that locker room.
Yeah, it's difficult, and maybe the most difficult right now for Julian Fernandez. He's going to come off this dramatic goal, and in all likelihood, unless Maxi Morales gets a rest and Fernandez Mercado comes into the center of the park at the start of the game, Julian Fernandez, there's really no room for him in the 11 right now. Who are you going to push out? Hannes Wolf, Maxi Morales, Alonso Martinez,
Nico He's not Fernandez even the first guy off the bench. He's not even the first guy off the bench. It's Ojeda. It's Trapito Ojeda. He's the first guy off the bench. By the way, he had 2 assists last night. Now he's got 3 assists in his last 2 games. There's a lot of competition, and I think a lot of talent on that part of the field for New York City.
But Fernandez is the one. Well, they came in together. Fernandez and Ojeda came on the field at the same time last night. But I understand what you're saying. Ojeda has been a first choice in recent matches. So this is what I'm going to say to Pascal in the pregame show tomorrow when I record it up at the training facility. I used Siri today while I was driving around. I was in the car a lot, and I said, please explain or please tell me how many goals Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, how many goals he scored as a substitute, and then how many game-winning goals out of those substitute goals did he score? Well, he scored 28 goals for Manchester United as a substitute, and the most famous of which was a winner from the bench in stoppage time in the Champions League final to beat Bayern Munich. But here is a guy who really for 2 seasons, right? And it's a Champions League season, and it's a season where they win the Premier League. They won the treble that year. And he was one of the most valuable players, and he never started. I mean, he started at some points, but he rarely started. He was the super sub. And I think those are the kinds of stories that you have to show your players, and everybody wants to play. But hey, here's your value. If you can keep adding like this, in my call, Roberto, and I was excited about it, but I also knew and I was prepared because Julian Fernandez had quite a drought. That was his first goal in 21 games. It's his third of the season, but his first in 21 games. And many of those off the bench. So if we added up all the minutes, we'd understand that, from at the surface, that sounds, wow, that's a lot. But it is a lot. It is a lot, and more is expected of him. But maybe more is coming. We'll see.
It was it was a good performance. And again, New York City doing what it's, what it shouldn't do and getting away with it. 4 games in a row where they've allowed the first goal, they've come back and won. And it's funny, but the only game where they scored the first goal was against DC United. And that's the only goal. That's the only game that they've lost. It's the only game that they've lost since July, not including Leagues Cup.
Wow. And all these stats, the 6 games coming from behind to win, 23 points have been recovered from losing positions this year. 23 points. Now, look, you don't like to go down, but there's a certain amount of resiliency, and it's the last 2 games as well. You're on the road in Chicago, you're down a goal, and then you're home against, one of the league's best, Columbus, and you still come back for the win. It was 1-0, then 1-1, then New York City was down 2-1, and it was 2-2, and the guy that made it 2-2 was Hannes Wolf, and here's how Matty Lawrence and I described it.
City again Ojeda. Here's the curling ball, the first time shot, it's a goal! And it's Hannes Wolf with a brace! His 4th brace of the season, his 4th brace in his career, and we are tied up again at Yankee Stadium. Oh my word, Hannes Wolf, a full volley, didn't really catch it cleanly, but caught Schulte at the near post side, and it skipped off the turf and past the Columbus keeper, and New York City, it's 2-2.
No, I thought I was going to give Matty a chance to talk about it.
No, I guess you didn't.
Cut that early, but yeah, I mean, so Hannes Wolf has 10 goals, 8 of them have been in 4 games. So
11 now. 11
goals, excuse me. 11 goals.
New York City has 2 double-digit scorers now, with Alonso Martinez at 15.
Well, we were crying all season long in the early portion in particular for that supplemental goal score, and Hannes Wolf has provided that, although, somewhat inconsistently, but you're not going to complain because his goals have really registered very much so in the points per game category. How about New York City in 5th place now? I suppose we should, approach the table here, Roberto, because, sometimes you just don't think about it. Because I'll tell you, back in early July, we were thinking this is not really a playoff caliber team the way they're performing here, right? I mean, we all said it.
It was iffy, yeah.
We can put it out there. We probably said it on this podcast, but they were so inconsistent. It was hard to know what you were going to get from game to game. And look, they 1 win in their first 10 road games, and now unbeaten in their last 5, 3 wins and 2 ties. I mean, things have really turned around nicely, and full credit to the staff and the players for understanding maybe how to play the game a little bit better in these days. But the standing, what do we got, Roberto? We got, somebody asked in a post-game presser last night about the supporters shield. I think that's going a little bit. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but you're playing the teams above you that you could really Hell yeah, it's a stretch.
Okay, so here's why it may not be that much of a stretch. I mean, it's they need help, but it's not that much of a stretch, and I'll tell you why. Right now, New York City has 50 points. The Union have 57, so that's in the East. I don't know if they right now. I can't see the West, so I'll look at the West in a second. But just from the Philadelphia standpoint of being number one in the East, okay. New York City has a game in hand. Let's say that they beat Charlotte. That puts them at 53. So now they're 4 points behind Philadelphia with the same amount of games played, correct? Then
with
they still have to play Philadelphia.
4 games
So
to
let's
play.
say they win that. Yeah, so let's say they win that. They're 1 game away then at that point.
No,
they're 1 game away.
I agree.
So,
You've got the teams that ahead of you on the schedule. That look, Charlotte, Miami, and Philadelphia. Can you imagine? Now, I think that's asking a lot to get 3 points in all those 3 games, and then you got the Red Bulls in a derby, and they are fighting for their playoff lives. You've got some really difficult games coming up,
yeah.
and I left somebody out of there. Oh, Seattle on decision day. So, they could be fighting for a top 4 spot. So that's going to be a critical game for them, perhaps, too, so that they have home field advantage in the playoffs.
So what I'm saying is that there actually is a chance, and it's not a horrific chance. It's an unlikely chance, but it's not horrific. I'm looking at Philadelphia's schedule and what they have left. They play New England at home, and now New England has gotten rid of the albatross, which is Caleb Porter. So he's gone. So maybe they'll play differently, just like DC United has played differently since they fired Troy Lesesne. And they haven't lost since then. They play Philadelphia next, and that's at Audi Field. Then there's the game against New York City on October 4th, and they finish out the season against Charlotte, who coming into the New York City game has won 9 games in a row. Is it impossible? No. Is it likely? Probably not, but there's a chance. It's not as crazy as it sounds.
No, it's crazy, but you're right. I mean, there could be circumstances, but there are a number of teams ahead of you, and then Miami has 2 games in hand on New York City. So that game next Wednesday is critical to the chances of finishing top 4, number 1. And then if there's this pipe dream of a supporters shield, then let's go for it. Or Eastern Conference Championship. New York City, Roberto, as you know, if they beat Charlotte, they're in the playoffs. That clinches a playoff spot with a victory over Charlotte. And it's funny how often, I think you looked through this list like I did, how often the New York Red Bulls either losing or drawing to Montreal, how that impacts a lot of teams that can clinch playoff spots, like Nashville, for instance, or Miami, or Columbus, or Orlando City. The Red Bulls either losing or tying factor into all those teams having a chance to qualify for the playoffs this weekend. So we'll see what happens in Montreal with the Red Bulls. Montreal's got nothing to play for, but, sometimes those are more difficult opponents. You just never know.
Absolutely. And look, New York City has a really hard schedule. Not only are the teams good, but they're playing every 3 and 4 days. So the last night's game was the rescheduled one because the turf at Citi Field wasn't holding yet because they had just replaced it, and so they couldn't play on it. So now you've got Charlotte at 1 o'clock on Saturday.
Hello. Where did Roberto go? So I had technical issues. I had to drop out. Now I'm back. Where did Roberto go?
I'm here. All of a sudden, I'm talking and I hear like music, and I'm looking up stats, so I didn't have it on screen. I'm like, what the heck? And then we had one of those, we've lost you. I was like, excuse me?
Hey,
we're back. Danielle, can you hear us?
we have to do the. I want to talk about Pascal and the substitutions too before we leave this game. I know we just went over all the standings, and that's so it's fun. It's a fun game now, and it's especially fun when things are happening while you're broadcasting the game. Like that Columbus Atlanta game was so fun to follow during the course of our broadcast in Chicago because they were an hour ahead of us. So we going on the air, you saw that it was 5-0, and wow. But Pascal Janssen, so 67th minute. Julian Fernandez and Agustin Ojeda enter the field for Maxi Morales and Alonso Martinez. Now, we have no news about Martinez, but they did, the training staff, somebody from the staff walked him back to the locker room area after he came off. We have no reports as to whether there's any sort of an injury, but he comes off. It would seem odd that you're taking your talisman off in a game where you need a goal. Maxi Morales comes off as well. And look, like you said, Ojeda 2 assists, Fernandez with the game winner, and Johnny Shore and Seymour Reed came in for Aiden O'Neill and Nico Fernandez-Mercal in the 82nd minute, and fresh legs. And it was Seymour Reed who wisely got out of the path of Fernandez for the goal.
You can see the patterns. You see the patterns with the starting lineup. You see the patterns with the substitution. Very little changes with Pascal. He's predictable, and it's not bad to be predictable when things work properly the way you want them to work. So you can be predictable that way. That's not an issue. I don't have a problem. You don't have to try to surprise the other coach. All you have to do is make sure that your pieces all work and they do what they're supposed to do. And with Pascal, he can announce and, at the 65th minute, I'm going to be taking somebody off and I'm putting Ojeda on. And it doesn't matter if he goes and he does his job. And so that's what it's been. And, it's fine to see it. I don't have a problem. You don't have to try to be fooling the opposite coach every time.
So you're fine to see what? Consistency? Of course.
Yeah, the consistency, the fact that
I'm talking about the timing of the substitutions. I'm really referring more to, his whether it's a feel for the game, whether it's calculated beforehand when they know they reach a certain level on the analytics and the GPS. I understand what you're saying, but I'm talking about the timing of the substitutions recently and who comes in. They're impactful. And you don't just become impactful as a substitute like that. You become impactful because you have certain individuals, whether it's your teammates, the coaching team, or the head coach, who are guiding you on this path. Because none of these guys, they're all used to being starters when they come to this program. Wherever
I don't know if you noticed, but Ojeda was up with the uniform on at the 55th minute, and Pascal was giving him instructions. And they talked for a while. It looked like he was going to come in at that point. Then he sent him back to continue training. And for whatever reason, he sent him back. And then when he did come on, he obviously came on with Fernandez. But at first, he was coming in alone. And then they thought about it, and then they made a change.
Well, he's Roberto Abramowitz. I'm Glenn Crooks, and we have an exciting stretch of commentary coming up. Dean Smith is the coach for North Carolina, not the late Dean Smith of the Tar Heels, but Dean Smith, who is the head coach of Charlotte, who have won 9 in a row, as Roberto said earlier. And apparently 10 in a row will tie his own personal record. He won 10 in a row once as the coach at Aston Villa, so that's pretty cool. So He even mentioned it. So I listened in on his presser today, Roberto. He brought that up, and he's pretty stoked to try to tie that mark. So he comes in with a certain amount of enthusiasm. This is what I like about Dean. He'll say that. It is important to me. Yeah, hopefully it'll work. Wilfred Zaha took the entire team out to a very, very expensive dinner on Monday night. Learned that in the presser. And Dean Smith said he should be able to afford it, but asked him if he wanted some help in paying the bill, and Zaha said no. But the whole theme around that and the people questioning at the press conference are like the ones that are at the New York City press conference. They're involved with the team. They follow the team closely, and the remark is how close the team is, because it was I guess if Wilfred Zaha invites you out and he says he's going to pay, you go, right? But it lends itself to the closeness of the team, and that was kind of the point there. And then he made a really interesting point about how it's, how everything in MLS seems more difficult. Travel is brought up all the time when compared to Europe, and especially
Right.
England, right? You can get anywhere in England in like 3 hours. So he said, though, it's easier to get everyone together for something like that, for the camaraderie and team building, because everybody lives in Charlotte. And he goes, in England, people are all over the place where they live. So they'll come into training from a distance, and they're not hanging out for dinner, because they got to get home. And I thought that was pretty interesting, that because we're always, told that it's tough at MLS because of travel. And now he's saying, well, for some things, it's actually it's better because everybody lived in Charlotte. Pep Biel is back. He played 15 minutes in the 3-0 win over Miami. He's a big-time player for them. But they've won 5 in a row without him, because they've won 5 straight since Leagues Cup. So now it's that, and that was the question. Like, well, do you insert him even though things are going great? And he said, I'm putting my best players on the pitch. So that's another indication that Pep Biel will very likely be in the starting 11. And guess what, Roberto? They talked about Yankee Stadium. Can you believe that?
No.
He said he brought the pitches for training. That's what everybody does. And all he said was, hey, we've had 3 straight wins on the road. No problem going to Yankee Stadium. So they didn't spend too much time on it. And it was brought up by a reporter because that's what happens.
Yes.
And he was suspended last game, Dean Smith. 3 yellow cards. So he watched the game from above, and somebody asked him the question. I don't know if you saw this, Roberto, and I showed it to Pascal at training the last time we were there. Luis Enrique, and it was his decision. He went up and watched the first half of one of his Ligue 1 matches from the press box area, from above, where you really have a good picture of things.
Right.
The bench is the worst seat in the house, And
Agreed.
especially some of these fields are actually, what do you call that when there's a little crater in the middle? Not crater, but
when they have a
a crown, right? Is that what they call it? So So somebody asked him, would you consider doing that? And he started talking about coaches in England that have done it. And what Luis Enrique said is he learned that rugby coaches do it a lot. Like it's like a thing in rugby. They watch the first half, the head coach, and then they come down. I mean, I used to do that with Michael O'Neill, my assistant at Rutgers. I would send him up to watch the first half, but I stayed. I thought it was important for the head coach to stay with the team. That's the only thing I would say with that. But you got to you have to trust your assistants. So good old Michael Joseph was the head coach last week.
I think that it's a situation where it's good to do it every so often. I don't know if I would do it every game, but every so often to gain a different perspective. I mean, yes, you can look at things, from the video afterwards and all that. And if they have an old 22 like they have in the NFL, where they have a camera that, shoots the entire field. And so we know that. But I think that if you get to experience that live and take notes and then go down to the locker room and doing that every so often, I think it gives you a different perspective, which is not a terrible perspective. I think that's something that should be done. I would also suggest that I'd like to see in soccer, because I've asked several coaches this and none of them have done it. If they have coaches that aren't with the team that would scout the team and prepare a plan against you, and then share that plan with you, how would you attack your team? So let's say Cal Porter doesn't have a job now, and they go to Cal Porter and they go, hey, how would you beat us? With what, and then prepare a plan and then look at that plan. And
we did it on the collegiate level anyway, and many of these coaches were friends. It's great. It's great stuff, Roberto, but we would meet oftentimes after games with a lot of the coaches and discuss both sides of what you're saying to help us the rest of the year. And especially in your non-conference schedule in college where you're not battling for the conference championship or something. And no, it's, because, we're all about learning more about the game, but it's also on the competitive side, these guys don't give up much.
No, I know that. That's why I'm saying you hire somebody who is either not from the league, you bring somebody in from CFG, from Manchester, or from another satellite thing, and their job is, all right, prepare a plan to beat this team, and then see what that is. And maybe you gain some perspective that you didn't have, maybe on a player or on a tactic or something. And I would just be really curious just to see that. I think it's a worthwhile exercise. Next time I see Pascal, I haven't spoken to him about it. I wonder if he does it, and or if he doesn't, and if he'd ever consider it.
I think most people do. So you're just talking about, and I'm sorry, I was reading something at the beginning of what you were saying. So you're just talking about bringing somebody in to observe your team, essentially.
Yeah,
Like,
to scout you, to scout your team against you.
yeah, yeah. Okay. I like it. I like it. Miami is home to DC United. I don't know if you said that. I think you talked about DC. No, you were talking about the Philadelphia schedule.
Yes.
Well, the news out of Miami, Michelle Kaufman, that was the first one I saw in the Miami Herald. Lionel Messi is going to, apparently, ESPN has confirmed this, that Lionel Messi is going to sign a multi-year contract. So since his contract expires at the end of 2025, multi would be more than one, which is why I say health be with him, that we'll see Lionel Messi at Etihad Park in 2027. If Brad Sims is telling us the truth, that it'll be open at the start of the season.
It will be open at the start of the way their things are going. I mean, I know that he's been advised not to give a timeline anymore, or how far ahead he is on a timeline. He's been told, to tone that down just in case things go south. Don't get people too excited. But the
Well,
way things are going and the weather's been perfect, there's no reason for them to be going ahead. And as he said in the press conference, we haven't even spoken about everything in the press conference. And what he told us in our private press conference with him was that nobody calls him to say we've got an issue. Every phone call he's gotten about what's going on with construction is, hey, everything is great, everything's going according to plan, everything's perfect. And he says it's the first time that's happened to him, and he's built like 4 stadiums already, and this is the first time it's ever happened to him. So, knock on wood. I don't know. He knocked on something else that wasn't wood. So if you're superstitious, we might be in trouble. But
well, in the process, in the presser with a lot of the podcasters, which you attended, I had to split. And Hudson River Blue wrote up a great Q&A from that, which really covered all the elements. I thought the most interesting thing by far, because I'm pretty sure it has not been disclosed publicly prior to this, is that Yankee Stadium situation where there were actually 17 owners of plots of land that were involved and had to agree on New York City moving into that area. So I don't know how you heard it, if otherwise, but I mentioned it to Brad on the field last night when we were downstairs that and he, it was one of those things that he really couldn't talk about openly, and he hopes it's okay now when he's already said it. But it was really fascinating to hear about it, because that's a lot of entities that have to come together.
Well, that was the issue, right? So the plot of land, or the X amount of plots of land, 17 plots of land that New York City had to acquire, to be able to put together everything, all the space they needed for the stadium. And
in the Bronx, I don't even know. I hope I said in the Bronx. It's in the Bronx.
No, well, you said in Yankee Stadium,
okay.
So it's not. It's the one that's just south of Yankee Stadium, where they wanted to originally build in the Bronx, which I thought was not a great idea, by the way, but that's just me. And it was very, very difficult because they had to have like agreements without buying it, because they didn't want to buy the land and then not get all the plots and then be stuck with the land. They didn't want that, so they had to have all these agreements that it was an intent to purchase. And once they had an agreement with all 17, then they could do it. But they didn't have an agreement with all 17, and it was a nightmare situation for them. And then at the end, it all fell apart. And so they pivoted to Queens, which
here we are.
Remember the first conversation that we had with him when he became president, and they were talking about the Bronx. And I told him in that meeting that we had, and I said, I think you should really speak to, because they're talking about some of the problems that they were having back then, and it wasn't what they said this
No,
week.
wait. Are you? I see that you're leading to a
Yes,
point
I
where
am.
you're saying that we're at Etihad Park because you push Brad Sims in
No,
that direction.
I'm not saying that we're there because of that, but I'm
Jesus,
saying
I
that
think there's some other advisors in there, maybe. But go ahead.
I didn't. I'm just saying that day,
love
I told them, I said, the place you should be looking at is across the street from Citi Field, and you
Okay.
should speak to the Mets.
All right.
Because at that point, and I asked him, and I said, I know that you have an agreement with the Mets because now you're starting to play some games at Citi Field. I said, have you spoken to him, to Steve Cohen, about the chance of being able to, that not have the opposition of you building across the street from him to be able to build a stadium there, because it's a much better place to build a stadium because it's in a soccer-rich neighborhood where, everybody loves soccer.
Well, I think it's the best move, and so thank you, Roberto, for pushing that forward with
You're welcome.
Mr. Sims. Now, I thought one of the more enlightening part of our conversation, and it actually got the most reaction on social media, but where we were talking about the potential change to the FIFA calendar. So here's what he said, and then let's discuss it on the other side.
I mean, we're still in favor of the change happening for the summer of 27. Yeah, and that's not off the table yet. So we'll see. What is off the only thing that's off the table is 26. But yeah, 27 is on the table, and we would be strongly pushing the league to change the schedule to start in the summer of 27.
So if the schedule would start with the summer of 27, what does it look like from February to, let's say, August? Is there going to be like a short tournament or something like that?
Yeah, my whether at whatever point, if the schedule changes, and I speak on behalf of our club that we are firmly in favor of it. I think the majority of clubs are in favor of it, and if that were to pass and to change, whether it could be 27, it could be 28, whenever it is, you would need to have some sort of stub season, mini season to kind of get us on the calendar. We wouldn't just not play for 6 months.
Now, that's wild, and I've always wondered what they might do, but I haven't thought about it too thoroughly until he said it. It was like, oh, that's true. You got to do something. So, well, and he pretty much spelled it out. It'll be like a season. You'll have a regular playoff format at the end, and that'll be.
They play 17 games. I guess maybe you just play everybody in your conference. You don't play anybody else in the other conference, and you have a playoff, and you get MLS Cup. And you'll have two, and you'll have MLS Cup. That will be MLS Cup 27.
It almost seems like a very, very extended preseason where you could really experiment with a lot of. You could play homegrowns. You could. What's the transfer window like? Then you've got the January window, so maybe now you're bringing players in and you give them an opportunity to mold with the team. And
it's a season, Glenn, and it's a championship. You go for it. You don't experiment. You go for it.
I'm preparing for the real season. I'm preparing for the real season.
No, that's a real season, and that's the thing. It's a shortened season, but it's a real season. It's going to be an MLS Cup.
Well, you can call it a real. You can call it a real season. Brad can call it a real season. It's not a real season. Okay, come on.
I'll disagree. In Mexico, they do this every year. They play 2 17-game seasons, and then they have playoffs and a champion. They have apertura
true.
and clausura.
But that's what they do each year. So you're talking about like one mini season, and what are we going to call it? Maybe we should call it the Apertura. Apertura USA. Oh, what are we going to do with Canada? Apertura North America.
Yeah.
No, I get that. I'm just saying, to me, I'm thinking it, of course, completely as a coach. Like, I want to get ready for the first real season on the FIFA calendar, and this is a chance to really integrate all the different parts and try 3 at the back. Do all the different things that you need to do, maybe to prepare for your team to be ready to go on July 31st or August 2nd, whatever it's going to be.
No, to me, not at all. If I'm the owner of the team, I want to get ready to win that championship.
All right.
100%.
Well, I'm sure there'll be some incentive in terms of dollar that will also
Of course.
make it more favorable to put out, everything you can. But
Let's talk about what's going to happen when they do switch to the European calendar. And that means that they're going to play, I guess it's going to be from August all the way to the second week of December. He said 6 weeks. I think it's going to be more than 6 weeks of a stoppage time. I think it'll be 8, but let's say if it is 6, that means that you're going to be playing, maybe they're going to weight the calendar where the last 2 weeks of December and or rather the 2 weeks that they're going to play in December and whatever weeks they play in February, all those games are going to wind up being in warm weather cities. And so then you're going to, starting in March, you'll
well,
start getting teams playing in the Northeast because it's going to be brutally cold in some places.
Yeah, but I thought he made a good point as far as New York City is concerned. And obviously, Brad Sims, ultimately, as all the owners are, they want to support the league in any way they can. But the obvious thing is that they want to protect their own football club. And he's saying, look, we played in December at the MLS Cup. We play in February now. It's so he the way he I guess March for home games. But the way he put it is like we're kind of on a similar time of year where we are playing games, so the switch wouldn't be as dramatic for like New
It's
York
true.
City.
It's true. Now the thing is that when you're playing MLS Cup, now you're only involving 2 and then before that 4 teams from somewhere in the middle of November until the first week in December. This time you're involving 30 teams, so there's a lot more weather to have to deal with. Now when it comes to February, everybody plays, so that's the thing. Now he also spoke about the stadium and the need to make sure that the stadium is winter friendly. So I talked about the fact that if they're going to put heaters there, or they're going to heat the seats, or what are they going to do?
His exact words, Roberto, were there's not much we can do. Those are his exact words. And that's when I chimed in. I'm so happy that he was on my side of the ledger on this. That because he's been at cold NFL games in Cleveland, Ohio. Are you kidding me? I mean, I'm sure maybe he was in a heated suite. I don't know. But,
please
put your woolies on, your wool socks, your 3 or 4 layers, and go to the game and tough it out. And I know what you said.
He didn't have a problem toughing out the winters in Cleveland when he was with the Cavaliers, who play in an indoor stadium.
I know he was the president of the Cavaliers, but he went to Cleveland Brown football games also. He goes to other sporting events there when he was there.
Okay.
Just so you know.
No, good to know.
Anyway, but that's I think, and as he and also I've made a few calls since we had our conversation just to see what some people thought. There seems to be, remember he said the collective bargaining agreement. He said 2 things are holding back maybe this starting in the summer of 27. One was the collective bargaining agreement, because the player and the timing of that is actually not favorable to maybe it being in the summer of 27. But also, how about the Apple TV contract? That was interesting to me, that the owners want to renegotiate the contract because they think their games are now more compelling on the FIFA calendar, that they're not competing with all these other entities, and there's not 2-week breaks during the playoffs. And I wonder how that will go, Roberto.
It's going to be interesting to see, because I don't know. Nobody really knows what all the ratings are. Obviously, Don Garber said something like they're getting like over like 100,000 or 112,000 per game, not per window. And so if that number is correct, don't quote me on it. It was something like that, which didn't seem a lot per game, but per window, that is obviously a lot of people. But the other thing that I've read a little bit about is that they do want to speak to Apple about what can they do to get more games in front of people. And Apple TV just increased its rate from $9.99 to $12.99. And I'm thinking to myself, why don't they just scrap the MLS season pass as far as having to pay for it? You're paying $12.99 for Apple. Let everybody just join Apple TV. They make their money that way. And if more people are watching, then you can start charging more money for advertising and things like that. And maybe they can figure out a way to get more, more people. They've got to invest in getting more people to watch some of these games. I mean, they've been compelling. The game last night, it's behind a paywall. So, and I think that you should do that, or at least let teams or just buy at least their own team. So like instead of paying $99 for the whole thing, $79.99 if you're an Apple TV subscriber, pay $19.99 and you can see all your team's games. You see all of New York City FC's games.
Yeah, they don't want that.
No, I'm sure they don't.
They don't want that.
But right now it's 12. But now that they increased it $12.99, that's a substantial raise. I mean, what
Yeah,
about a 30% raise in the fee for Apple TV?
I missed that.
And
Did
now
they do that? Did they do that surreptitiously? I don't remember getting the email on that.
I don't know. They did not do it surreptitiously. I got an email saying your rate will go up as of next month.
Maybe I just
September. It's $12.99.
Hey, the Chicago Fire, as they fight for a playoff spot, they are giving any of their supporters, any of them, a free trial of Apple so that they can watch the run to try to get into the playoffs for the first time since 2017. So a little goodwill there.
Good.
I don't know how they did that, but I suppose
they gave. I think that they have like something like a deal, like 33% off on tickets for the rest of the season. I think I saw on my email today. I like skimmed over it. So if anybody saw the actual email and what the exact thing is, but they got 20,000 and change for the New York City game. I'm sure they'd like to get more people to to try to help them out as the season winds down and they try to make the playoffs.
All right, good stuff, Roberto. Let's go kicking it around, shall we? All right, well, it's been the 10th anniversary celebration for New York City throughout the season, and one thing that they have graciously also celebrated is for Roberto and I. We've been there since the first kick doing the radio commentary, and we're celebrating our 400th game, all competitions. The English radio side was celebrated last night. When you go to Decision Day on October the 18th, when Seattle visits, the Spanish side will be honored. And a video was produced. Matthias, if you're watching, thank you so much. Aya, if you're watching, thank you so much. Those were two of the people that I know of that were at the forefront of organizing this and putting it together. But they did a really nice job to honor what we've contributed on the radio side to the New York City Football Club, and here it is. I am the lead commentator on the radio. I've been here since the first kick, which was in Orlando, and so it's the 11th season.
Estuve en el primer partido en Orlando y desde entonces ha sido como una montaña rusa de emociones.
Es el campeón de Major League Soccer shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first. To have the opportunity to be with a professional club consistently for that long has really been amazing.
Para mí es súper importante eso, el hecho de poder narrar para una comunidad que le encanta el fútbol, que si le podamos dar un pedacito de algo que los hace sentir en casa, entonces estamos haciendo bien nuestro trabajo.
¡Alegría, mi corazón! ¡Vamos!
Ultimately evolved into Maddie becoming my full-time partner. Maddie's one of the best.
Although Glenn's the play-by-play guy, obviously, Glenn's knowledge of football, of soccer is absolutely tremendous. I'm more describing why something happens, but I think we have great dialogue. I think we have such a good rapport. that we can pull that off.
Ariel es una biblioteca del fútbol. Puedo preguntar cualquier cosa sobre cualquier jugador y él va a saber algo.
Mi relación con Roberto ya tiene muchísimos años, la parte final de la temporada 2021. Vivirlo de cerca, vivirlo con Roberto, pero realmente impactantes y creo que eso no se me va a olvidar nunca en la vida.
Munder Torarensen, he scores a free kick goal. That point, not only did it keep them alive, they didn't lose another game the rest of the season.
Ese momento fue absolutamente clave porque desde ahí en adelante New York City nunca perdió un partido más el resto de la temporada hasta que pudo elevar la Copa de MLS Cup allá en Portland.
When New York City FC win, it feels so good to be in the booth, and when they lose, on the flip side, sometimes it feels really bad.
I hope the supporters feel that way about both myself and Roberto, that we've been here from the start. So we've seen everything, we've absorbed everything, we've grown ourselves as broadcasters and as part of this New York City community.
Yo siempre he dicho, New York City FC me paga, o ESPN me paga, o NFL Network me paga. Yo no trabajo para ellos, yo trabajo para la gente que nos está escuchando.
Very nice. Very nice. We flip sides. Oh, there we are again.
There we are. You know something? I feel so cool that they did that, and it's been an absolute honor and a privilege to work for New York City FC and for the liberties that they give us. You don't take it for granted, especially in times like these. They don't interfere in what we do. We do our job. We do everything, and I'm always very proud of this point, and I mention it to everybody. And New York City should be very, very proud of this. We are the only radio team in English and Spanish that travels. Nobody else travels both their English and Spanish radio teams. Some of them don't travel English. Some of them obviously never travel Spanish. And there are baseball teams and football teams that don't travel their teams either. So, I mean, it's great that they give the fans, and this is the important part, that New York City gives the fans the best opportunity to get the best broadcast that they can. And so they treat their fans with respect that way. And we're just the conduits to be able to do that. So thank you, Sam Cook. Thank you, Esteban. Thank you, Brad Sims. Thank you, everybody who's involved in these decisions that allow us to do that, to bring the best that we can for the fan base of New York City FC in both English and Spanish equally.
Yeah, and I think of these moments when we're in the stadium and on the road in Chicago, for instance, Raul Gustavo making his debut. Well, it wasn't seen on Apple television. And if you're not at the game, you couldn't see how much he was laboring in the last 25 minutes of the game. And he stuck it out for as long as possible, came out late. But that was a thrust of my questioning with Pascal Janssen the very next couple of days later for the pregame briefing for the next match, the one we just did last night against Columbus. I spent a lot of time on Raul because I was impressed the fact that he fought through that. And Pascal knows him very well after coaching him in Hungary. And he said that's who he is. And he's good for MLS because he's a beast. He used the word beast twice. But anyway, my point there is that off the ball, outside of the camera, you could see that, you could describe that. And I think those little caveats really add to the flavor of what we can offer.
To say nothing of the conversations that we can have with the players and the coaches when we're just waiting in the lounge or on the plane or in the hotel. All these things give you just tremendous insight that you just can't get when you're sitting at home or you're sitting in the studio doing a game off television. You just can't get that. I mean, just something as simple as who's taking a free kick. If the camera, when we've done games off TV, and it has happened that we've had to do that, you're sitting there wondering, who's going to take the free kick, because until the camera puts, the director says, okay, shoot this and show who's going to throw. You have no idea. And you can tell this with any game that is being shot in soccer, where, if it's being done at home, or at a studio, or they're at the stadium. Just watch a free kick and see what the timing is on who's taking a free kick or if somebody's offside or not. When they see the linesman do that, they go, "Oh yeah, it was offside."
or who's in the area. How are they set up defensively? If you're passionate about the game and your team and how things are constructed, and that's why you have a great analyst like you have, Ariel, and I have Maddie, and then for both of us, we're just very experienced in the field, and it's well, look, I'm with you, and I'll thank the same people. I won't repeat because I don't want to continue to add on to it, but I support everything you said as far as those that have contributed to what we've done. There's a very, very long list. And it really starts with Mark Chernoff, who hired us, along with Tim Pernetti, who was the president of the club at the time. And then it went from there. So it's been a long road. We've seen a lot. There have been a number of 6 coaches in 11 years. So I have that right. Sometimes I lose track. And each one of them a different personality. For our pregame show, we used to go into the locker room before the game and get it that way. And then COVID hit and things changed, and it still works out nicely where we get it up at the facility. And I would like to just close by saying I'm so thankful that the PR and communication staff gives us the opportunity to spend that much time with the head coach every week. It's really pretty unprecedented because we know a lot of our colleagues don't have the same access. So that's it for me, Roberto. We got a game to prepare for. We don't have much time.
No, I've got that. So we both have Charlotte on Saturday at 11:45, and then I've got the Jets on Sunday. So yeah, I got a lot of reading to do between now and then.
Well,
There's gonna be a lot of studying.
I have Rutgers against Indiana on Sunday, so I'm not just laying around on Sunday on the Big Ten Network. So. And in fact, when we get off here, this is live, when we get off 8 o'clock, good, the timing's good. I'm going to watch Rutgers at Minnesota on the Big Ten Network. I know there's other games on, but that's the one I'm going to watch. So there you go.
All right, I'm gonna watch Thursday Night Football, and I got my pick in just before we got on the air, because if not, I don't want to lose my pick'em league like I did last year because I missed 2 picks.
Well, it's an early kickoff on Saturday, so it's Roberto and I on the New York City FC Network with our pregame show at 11:45 a.m. That's right, before noon. Maddie and I will be on NYCFC pregame live at 11. That's the live stream we do before each game, and then kick off at 12:10, and then we'll go from there. And wow, with Charlotte and Miami coming up in the next 2 games, considering the table, pretty exciting, Roberto.
It really is. And then we've got also the fact that New York City only has 1 victory in 7 games against Charlotte, 1 tie and 5 losses. So Charlotte has had their number. So we got to see if New York City just leaves the past in the past and, forges a new road. And then, the games against Inter Miami, the last 2 have been ties, and they've been pretty scintillating.
Pretty scintillating. Especially that James Sands leveler. All right, let's get out of here. For Roberto, I'm Glenn. Thanks to Shane for producing on NYCFC Views Live.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.